Steve Ruiz is the designer, founder, and CEO of tldraw, an IDE for the infinite canvas in the modern web. And he's hailing from London, and I'm thrilled to have him here. So please give him a
Thank you.
warm welcome to South Park Commons. Steve, let's start off just with tldraw. What is tldraw? What does it stand for? And we can kind of take it from there.
tldraw doesn't stand for anything. Okay. I mean, I guess symbolic, politically we do. But I actually bought the domain before I recognized the TLDR, and I bought it for something else. But no, it's a tiny little drawing app. I think that was the first thing that it stood for. And that's all it was when I started it. It was like an open source library for building infinite canvas apps like Miro or Figma. There wasn't any open source for that, and I had a couple of months and was really into it, and so that's what I kind of fell into. But it ended up being very popular. It ended up being something that I guess a lot of companies, a lot of teams wanted to build something like that.
And I think it caught the attention of like the Adobes and the Figmas of the world.
Yeah.
Which is like, if I recall correctly, that's how you and I first met, right?
I think so, yeah. Because Figma, this was open source. I was working at a design tools company, Play in New York, which is just shutting down that product. But yeah, there's not that many people who know about this domain, like the infinite canvas. It's a pretty gnarly domain from like a design perspective and a programming perspective and just performance. It's like all the hard problems that you have, distributed systems, like multiplayer, all that shit. Mm-hmm. But I was really into it. I was posting about it on Twitter at the time, and it attracted a lot of attention, both from people who were just following me as I tried to figure out how to get the shapes to rotate,
right,
all around the center. You gotta rotate each shape around its own center, and then you rotate all the shapes around the center. And if you do both of those,
Steve has built a Twitter following around like exceptional GIFs, sort of displaying like how arrows should sort of work around containers.
Yeah.
And I often like describe him as like the world's foremost expert on arrows.
If you like linking lines, I will talk to you about linking lines all day. But but it attracted the interest of folks like Figma. Suddenly Scott Belsky is in my DMs, being like, "Hey, you should come work at Adobe."
The embarrassing story is I was tasked by Figma to go and close Steve and have him join Figma. And so we meet up in this lovely cafe in London. I hadn't realized that he was an expat. And over the course of that conversation, I learned that you were also an MFA grad, like a fine arts grad student, which we'll get back to. But over that arc, I realized this guy cares a lot more about tldraw than either of these two outstanding offers. And so I think that was kind of where we left it off. It's like, hey man, if you want to work on this third side quest, I'd love to support that. I think it's actually pretty neat. Yeah. And it sort of seemed like that was already kind of where you were headed anyway.
I think by that time I quit my contracting position just to go full time on it. And then the day after I did that, I had a very large telecommunications company be like, hey, we're building a whiteboard and we want to build on top of what you've built. It's not open source yet. Can I just give you lots of money in order to do it? Yes, I'll accept lots of money. I should have asked for more. And then but I'm like, it has to be a sponsorship. The IP needs to be mine. You just give me the money. I'll give you access to the source code. I'll call you once a week. But otherwise, I want to just keep working on this. But that was very encouraging. And then I started getting other companies kind of reaching out, being like, hey, we've been talking about doing this thing for months or for years, but it's always been too big of an ask. Can we just jump onto tldraw? So by the time that we talked, it was already a little bit too much momentum to turn away from. I knew I would either sell it or kind of merge it into another company or spin up my own company or do something. But it was the snowball had started to snowball. A little too much at the time.
and I seem to recall you also had a vision for tldraw that was a little bit different than what I think the incumbents kind of saw in the infinite canvas. And so maybe start with that.
Absolutely.
Why is the infinite canvas important, and how is AI starting to feed into your vision for what it means?
Yeah. So I was not early on AI. However, I was like early on. I mean, I was coming from a design tools background, so I been a huge user of Figma. I'd been a huge user of like Whimsical and Miro and all these other like kind of collaborative whiteboardy type of tools. And I was pretty up on what the team at Envision was working on with Freehand and Miro and so forth. And I'm like, man, like these use cases are like people love this. People like love it, like collaborative infinite canvas whiteboard or whatever, or at least the people who love it really love it. And the use cases that were on the market were just so limited and so kind of like conservative, like in the sense of like just, yeah, it's a whiteboard or it's a design tool. And I'm like, you have this like 2D direct manipulation, like this could be so many things. And after talking to teams, especially after teams started to reach out to me, I was like, oh, it's not for like lack of desire or lack of trying even. It's just like the canvas is really hard. And folks don't like, yeah, like it's like I don't make maps, I don't make text editors, I don't make data grids. Like there are these certain things that I don't want to build, I want to use. I don't make UI frameworks. Like I use whatever the worst UI framework is at the moment. And like, yeah, it just seemed like there was an opportunity in the market to do this, and also just an opportunity to like crack this modality, this kind of like, UX paradigm, and get some really far out stuff in it. Like I think when I was pitching, I would just say like, I don't think we've like seen the killer use case for a canvas yet. Like yes, we have like big companies that are using this, but like I don't think we've seen it yet. And I did not have AI in mind at the time, but it's turning out that like, wow, a lot of the tools that are good for communicating with other people are good for communicating with AIs. And the kind of the great UX experience for if you want to collaborate with a lot of people at the same time, you jump on a whiteboard. Mm-hmm. And that also turns out to be really the case with AI and agents as well, in a way that is like I've been to the future. I've seen it. It's awesome. Like we had like our 15 people from our company all on the same whiteboard. Every person from the company had 3 little agents that they could talk to and command that were spatial. They were like had places on the canvas, and they had a kind of a foveated context, to see the things that they were near more than the things that they were far away. Anyway. So 45 little agents, plus 15 people all on the same canvas. And it was just normal. It was just like, it was chaos, right? But it was also just normal. Like all the UX just worked for that situation. Yeah. So if you ever want to play with that project, it is fairies.tldraw.com.
It looks cartoony. Yes. But it genuinely does feel like a glimpse of the future, being able to work with virtual agents in a Canvas environment, task them with things to do, and they're sort of moving around with you, constructing stuff in real time. And it's wildly emergent and kind of like leverages all the things that are incredible about these frontier models.
Yeah. I mean, the models are absolutely not good at this type of thing yet, hence why they're fairies and not like just terribly ineffective colleagues, virtual collaborators, but they like, I don't know. It's one of those experiences where it's been like the first time I used Figma or something to be like, oh, well, this is obviously something that is going to be a part of certain workflows or certain ways of people working together. In this case, people working together and working with agents. So.
And what are some of the more surprising like practical use cases that you've seen people build on top of tldraw? Because there's obviously the things that are public facing that we can sort of go on the internet and try it ourselves, but I imagine there's probably a lot of like internal use cases too, right? What's sort of been the species of products that have emerged because you've provided this infinite canvas SDK?
Yeah, it's really far out. One of my favorite is actually Observable. So Observable is like they have the folks behind like D3, it's visualization, it's data. If you go to a New York Times election article, right? They're using a bunch of stuff, probably from Observable. It was always one-dimensional notebooks, right? Like the kind of like Jupyter notebook style way of defining data and then visualizing it, manipulating it, and so on. And they have a new product, like the observable canvas, where it's basically the same thing, just not one-dimensional. It can branch, it can go off. You know, you can say, like, take this data set, like, perform this query, and then do, like, various, you know, visualizations or subqueries or something off of that. And if you change something, sorry, I can see the graph. I don't know about you guys. If you change something kind of at the root of this graph, like, it'll just ripple out to all the leaves and stuff. It's fantastic. And it, like, so many of the things that we would do as designers in Sketch or Figma or other tools work so well in that context. For example, just, you know, a designer will, like, a Figma file kind of eventually looks like a graph because you want to do these iterations really quickly, and then compare them against each other. Same thing with the data.
It was like a lineage, right? You sort of see ideas.
You wanna, exactly, and it's not just the data, it's not just the final design that's important. It is like, how did you get there? You know, which decisions did you make? And it's awesome that we have a medium that allows you to kind of like have that trace. But like, we were on a call, they were showing me this, and there was 2 different visualizations of the same data. I'm like, oh, you know what? If you just drop the opacity of the top one to 50% and just drag it on top of the other graph, like, suddenly you have this emergent feature, you know, that none of us made, but to visually compare two graphs on top of each other. And you know, the whole team kind of lost their mind. They're like, oh, God, you know, like, I've always wanted to do this. So that's a great one. We've had, God, people making, like, there's a surprising amount of moments within a bigger app where a design tool is needed, but it's like, it can't be the full app. And design tools are very, you know, tough to just kind of drop in. So we had a company that was doing, like, direct mailers internationally, right? And you'd have your design, and you'd be able to convert the messaging, whatever, to different languages, and the currency to different languages. But sometimes the currency or the messaging would be, like, longer or shorter, and you needed to just adjust the design just slightly for those other languages. Like, that's a lot of work. And to build a UI for that, even though it's only one step in this very much more complicated logistical flow, yeah, they used tldraw for that, and it just worked. Like,
and for folks that are working on trying to create horizontal layers or, like, infrastructure for other teams to use, what are some of the product principles that you apply to what gets rolled into tldraw versus where you just politely say, like, maybe you should build that within your app? Like, how do you sort of think about that boundary, and how has your thinking on it evolved as you've expanded the number of customers and teams that you work with?
Yeah, that is really tough. And so for example, there's always going to be features that a customer thinks are undifferentiated that I think are not undifferentiated. And I'm saying, like, I can build the undifferentiated stuff. We're learning that you call those features enterprise features. You build them anyway and you sell them, right? Because they're like, I do not want to build this. I am willing to pay for this, whatever. It's really, really tough to synthesize a whole bunch of different features that other people are asking for and say, like, oh, this is the pattern, right? This person's asking for, like, a measuring tool. This person's asking for better kind of, like, grid snapping, or this one wants to do overlays for, like, a web editor or something. And you kind of, like, spend a lot of time squinting and being like, oh, I think that's, like, a custom geometry overlay thing. Like, you know, let me try this. Let me try this. Let me try this. I think it's not what I expected, but I mean, tldraw it's an NPM package. Like, you just install it. It's just like a normal web thing, right? Which I'd never seen anyone effectively sell. Like, normally NPM, like, the code is open source, and then you build products on top of it. And they have this whole open core model. I think the thing that we learned on the go-to-market side is just, like, figure out a way to charge for the thing that people care about. Like, whatever the meatiest part of your IP is, like, put a price on that. tldraw has, it's like a license. Like, it's crazy what we got away with or something. But, like, if you wanted to use tldraw, like, you get a license key, a trial license key. It's 100 days. use it at the end of that. Like if you're a small team, you get like a cheap license, a couple $1,000. If you're a bigger company, then you talk to our sales team, and we negotiate every price. There's no price on the website. And if you're like an indie, if it's a side project, we'll just give you a hobby license. But that, like, number one, boy, am I happy we did that, because that model of building things on top of an open source project, like, that's gone. Like, I mean, that got, like, I don't know if you guys follow or on Twitter as much as me, but like, yeah, like you saw what happened with Tailwind. Like, no one, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, how are you navigating like all these business model changes? Because I'm sure there's like there's this citywide angst around like, well, wait, if I am a seller of software in this new AI regime where a lot of AI can now just reproduce software sort of while we sleep, what is it that I'm selling exactly? Like, how are you currently going from the world in which like tldraw was created into this new market that's emerging where we have agentic customers, software just in time as you need it, and what role will the infinite canvas play in this new paradigm?
I'm expecting by the end of this year to have one of our sales go end to end, where we are talking entirely to an agent, like where they're including the negotiation and price and all that stuff, right? However, I think I'm not sure. I have a view, and it may be a view that's overly influenced by my own investment in it being true or something like that, and a tiny bit of your investment as well. I think that when I'm talking to teams and convincing engineers not to build something is actually quite hard. To say like you don't make this code, make this other code on top of it. And the argument is always that like you're good engineers, you could make this. Like there's nothing special about me or my team. Maybe a little bit in that like this is the stuff that whatever I obsess over, whatever. But either way, like technically, from a technical standpoint, any team could kind of build something like tldraw. It's just that you wouldn't. Number one, like the approach to building a product is very different than approach to building like a small part of a product. The motivations when you're building an SDK are to like actually solve as many problems as possible at a level that if I was just building a product, if I was just building a canvas for data visualization or something, I would just skip off of as many things that I could punt on as possible. I would, because that's not the point. And so the argument to them is like, well, number one, you get it today instead of having to build it. But number two is that like it's just goes deeper than you need it to go, and your users will benefit from that. And it'll keep getting better underneath you over time. And like if you contracted this work out, there would be no team in the world that you would rather contract it to than the one you're talking to. So like compared to what I would charge you to build this thing, like you're getting it very cheap. Now, I think AI engineering is going to change that somewhat, but like all the fundamentals are still the same. Like you could build this, you could, ask your agents to spin up a canvas or whatever. Yeah. But like in the same way that, like it would be a superficial solution, and I think it would matter to the users. Yeah. And if it didn't matter to the users, then absolutely go for it, right? Like I wouldn't expect to sell anyone anything that doesn't matter to their product anyway, right? Yeah. And wouldn't you rather, I guess, be like having your agents build on top of something that you know is good, rather than like also having them build the underlayers for that? Yeah. Like again, I don't like if I need a UI framework, I don't. Like, I guess I could probably ask Claude to like, hey, I don't like React, build me something else, right? Right. But like, why? Yeah.
And it seems like you're codifying some of these best practices. In some respects, some of these design decisions that you're making around the infinite canvas are becoming like the lingua franca for diagramming, for interactive diagramming, for how intelligence cascades through diagrams, right? Tell me a little bit more about like, the lead up to the present and where you're hoping to take it over the next, say, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to try to synthesize the pattern, right? The premise was that the infinite canvas as a UX paradigm, right? As a type of application or a thing that you would recognize inside of an application is essentially commodified. That anyone in the room would be able to identify it, and then anyone in the room coming to a canvas, or at least most people, anyone who's used a couple of these things before, would like know how to use it, would know how to select things, know that like if you hold shift and click on things, you're gonna select multiple things, or if you hold alt and drag something, you're gonna like create a copy of it. And that I could synthesize those off of all the other canvases that are out there. There actually turned out to be a lot of variance within those products and different things that are implemented in different ways, like a crazy amount of variance, which was great because then I got to make the decision, right? Of like, these are the UX choices that are going to ripple into hundreds or thousands of products, definitely thousands by now.
And do you make these choices like as a benevolent dictator? Like, how does it work like internally? I'm always fascinated with how CEOs run their businesses. Like, how
yeah.
Yeah, like what advice would you give to designer CEOs who are kind of confronting these kinds of pattern decisions?
I was playing. I have a kid. I bought Legos, and my wife and I were just playing the Legos together, and I kind of, she had built something, and then I reached over and I just started like fixing it, right? And like if you asked me, I would say like, you know what, actually that is a better castle or tower or something than it was before. But obviously when you're doing Lego, it's a game, like it's not about that. And it's completely socially inappropriate to behave as if it is about the end product rather
also
than the
maritally.
experience. Yes, exactly. But it's as a founder, there's still the same social expensive social capital or expensive reputation or whatever, but you have to do it. And I think there's different camps, and I'm in the camp of like impose your taste like a con, try not to terrorize people, but like like it actually is about the end product. It's not about the journey. So yeah, I think there have been, especially since we sell a code product, and the code itself is part of the surface area of what I consider the product. And I've gone to great lengths to make sure that the decisions there, the APIs or whatever, are good and opinionated and like make sense. But on the other hand, sure, I've had my share of like, what the
Who came up with this?
Like, this works. Why are you obsessing over this detail? And it's just like, come on, I want it to be good.
This approach, how does it lend itself to the way you hire? Because I feel like so much of like the stage that you're at, and the stage a lot of these startups are at, the company that you built is really the team that you assemble. What is sort of your unique take on finding folks that are like-minded, that are the merry band to work and obsess over the infinite canvas? What are the qualities that you're sort of seeing repeat themselves and rhyme with every person you bring onto the team?
God, hiring is, I know everyone says this, but it is true. Like, hiring is like hard. Boy, I think it's I try and hire like the same person, the same type of profile across all roles. And that's something that I started with, and then I got away from, and then I've come back to, which is kind of a generally full stack, someone who's at least competent across most tech areas, who leans more or less towards front end, but who like spikes in various places, right? Spikes in design, spikes in infrastructure, spikes in like developer experience, things like that. I've tried to hire people who've had some sort of ownership over a product before.
Okay.
Open source maintainer being like the best kind of profile for that. Someone who's like had to deal with the community, had to like triage issues that they didn't create themselves about something that was still theirs. Someone who had to make the logo for the right?
And presumably have a track record that you can go and scrutinize and sort of see how they went about it.
That's nice as well. But even folks who've done that same thing inside of a company where I can't look at the code, like it's still like having to come up with a name for stuff. You know, like that level of ownership is like not everyone does that. Yeah. You can have a whole career, especially inside of larger companies, without having to like stand behind. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I've never worked in big tech. But it sounds like I'm told that you can get away with just not having something be like expressive of yourself in some way.
Yeah.
And having that kind of like personal investment in or just relationship to the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, winding the clock back a little bit, you started off your career in fine arts. You, I feel like the term generalist gets thrown around a lot in tech in the Bay Area, and with you, I feel like you set a new standard for me of like what actually constitutes a generalist. You are a self-taught designer and developer, and so to the average audience member, somebody across the street, they wouldn't intuit that somebody who is a CEO would necessarily come from that background. How did that happen? Like, what sort of took you from a fine arts background to helming this business? And what along the way do you feel like is actually central to the work that you do?
Yeah. I'm gonna compress it's big. Okay. So I studied fine art in undergrad. I studied fine art at University of Chicago for grad school. I was a practicing artist, like an exhibiting artist.
His work is phenomenal, by the way. You should check it out online.
Thank you. I'm famous on Twitter this week for notebooks. So hit me up if you're a notebook person.
We're going to talk about his Twitter game in a minute. Yeah.
But I also wrote a lot about fine art, and then as a day job, I was like human ChatGPT for like lawyers. Like I was like a research assistant for attorneys. Huh. So I had this like, and I also kind of built portfolio websites for other people or maintained them, but they were very lightweight WordPress websites, right? I didn't know how to code, but I did know how to. I was familiar with the way that things worked on the internet a little bit. Moved to England, different laws in England than in Chicago. So there went to my day job. And after like 2 years, 1.5 years, had a studio, was still making work, but you know, I was now like 4 years out of grad school, and I was like, all right, I want to kind of combine this creativity, like visual creativity, with the kind of the more analytical side that I had previously done for my day job. And got into design, got into product design, got into prototyping.
But how? Because it's like there's you start with WordPress websites.
Extremely intentionally and aggressively. Like I actually was going back to some of my earlier notebooks just to take pictures for Twitter, and I was like, wow, I was like fucking like lasered into this. Like, all right, if I'm gonna do a career change, if I'm gonna shut my studio down, I'm not gonna fuck around. Like,
you're burning the boats.
I have been. Well, no, it's just that like, if you talk to like a practicing artist, even if they're, you know, your bartender or something like that, that person is probably working 40 hours a week and 40 hours a week in their studio, and like not easy work. Like whether they're musicians or fine artists or something, like even if their work isn't good or whatever, like it's hard to do that. It's like intellectually hard. It's like spiritually hard to try and do something great every time and fail at that pretty much every time. But that's the point. Like you don't make like a middle of the road painting. Like you don't go into it with that. You don't try and write like a okay song. Like you're swinging for the fences, you know, every time. So if I'm gonna shut that down, I don't want to be just a little, I don't like rectangle drawing guy. Like I had a lot of energy that went into it, and it was fun to kind of focus that for the first time in my life on the kind of a single target. And yeah, I was like, all right, no one knows how to use. At the time, it was a Framer Classic, CoffeeScript. I don't know if anyone.
That's a throwback.
It was a good moment in design. It's really good. A bunch of people at Facebook had made a little JavaScript library for quickly making interactive prototypes and spun it off into a company. Now you can make a website with it, and but like no one knew how to do that, but it was popular. Like Airbnb was using it, Meta was using, or Facebook was using it, and who else? Uber was using it. This idea that like designers should code and designers should like iterate on the thing, like not through mocks but through like interactive stuff during the design phase or whatever of the thing. And I'm like, all right, no one knows how to do that. I'm gonna know how to, like, that seems great. That'll be my thing. And it was highly intentional, but it was like
the right bet to make.
A lot of studying, a lot of like just doing the same thing over and over again. And it turned out actually really, really good. So before doing tldraw, my whole career was essentially that. Like I was the designer who could prototype, who could work with code to finish the design or to make the design in a way that was like, rather than putting something over the wall and the engineers being like, hey, this doesn't make any goddamn sense, like this, it looked good in Figma, or whatever, Sketch or Photoshop at the time. But the usability of this is terrible. And then you'd have to fix it or whatever, but it's already late in the game and like people are mid-sprint and it just doesn't work. So much better to go really, really quickly through a couple of cycles of at least getting the flow or the interactions and all that stuff right. And still having room to like be creative in that. Like rather than trying to make it work while someone's like, come on, man. I'm trying to ship here, right? So anyway, that also seemed like it was a great practice for startups, actually, where you do want to move very quickly, where things don't matter very much in the beginning. No one's using this thing anyway, at least at first, and so you have a lot of, and like you're throwing away code. Some of it's good code, but like it's not the code that you need and all that stuff.
And you have license to improve, right? Like you don't have to just stop because you shipped it. You can fuss with it, make it better.
I think if you're able to trick yourself into kind of doing whatever you're doing performatively in a way, like wow, I'm not really, like this is a
it's like I'm cosplaying.
If you can just get yourself into that mode, at least for some people, that is like such a big unlock of like I can do whatever I want because I'm not really trying to do anything here, or I'm not really doing the thing. I'll do it later, and then someone, people have invested in your company and everything. Be like, it's.
It reminds me of the Dr. Seuss famously, wrote under the pseudonym Dr. Seuss because he always felt like someday he would produce the great American novel.
He didn't want to spoil his brand. That's funny.
And it gave him kind of license to be creative and to do things that were world changing. So, I feel like you and I are of a common school of like designers who ship, of like getting an idea out there and iterate on it, which is learn more in the process of making itself. And more importantly, you have to kind of confront reality head on rather than in the safety of the ivory tower. But as you recognize, and I'm sure as everybody else recognizes, these new technologies are upending a lot of our core assumptions around how design works. I've been asking this of all the designer founders in my orbit, like, how do you think design is going to be evolving through all this? And obviously, like, how do those answers then kind of feed into the work that you're doing, which is in the medium of design, the infinite canvas? Like, where do you think this is all going? Like, what is going to happen to design on the other end of general intelligence and what lies beyond it?
I think, we do not have to get to general intelligence in order for design to be kind of dramatically changed. It's already, like, there's a great talk that Jenny Wen did in Berlin a couple of months ago, and then she was just on Lenny's podcast as well, just talking about like how the design process has changed or whatever. This is like, there was a kind of a discourse around should designers code and what would design look like if all the designers kind of coded, or what if the whole team was the same type of designer that I was at the time.
Discourse is charitable. I think it was a holy war, but continue.
Generous. But it was, like, for folks who, well, now we're getting to find out. It turned out that you didn't need to train a whole bunch of people how to code in order to get to a place where the designer can ship, you know? I mean, my salespeople are shipping. Like, it's very weird. I shouldn't let them do that. But no, it's like internal tools and stuff, man, it's just amazing. It's such a cool time to have people be able to take what they know would make something better, like to find themselves in a place where they have the most context to make a decision and to have the agency to do it. That's always been the thing between like, should designers code or whatever. It's just like, can you get the people with the most, like the best person on the team to make this decision into a position where they can actually make that decision, or into a position where they can get into a feedback loop with the products or with the users or something and influence the product. And, you know, the whole industry has tried to do that with a lot of design process, with pairing with, you know, designers and engineers and mixed teams and all this stuff. But like, honestly, the best work that's, like every team that I talk to, like the coolest, best features in their app, like came because like essentially like one person or two people just went heads down and they did it. And then they sort of asked for permission later, or they kind of like socialized it later or something like that. Like every team has that story.
Or beg forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. You take a little bit of a risk, insert your opinions and stuff in the product. But, and yeah, I do think that we're probably in a moment where it's not that there's not going to be no process around design. Like, of course, there's going to be some sort of process around design. But I think it needs to be if design wants to like survive at all, which I don't think it needs to, like, I think it's fine to just have like developers with good visual sense and style guides and AI agents and everything that are able to execute against that like style guide or whatever. Like, but you know, the best designers that you know should, and I think must, be trying to get themselves into a position where they can influence the product like directly and be part of that iteration cycle, which is going to go very, very quickly, very, very quickly. Yeah, I think the days of like, yo, let me mock this up for you. Like, come on, like, no way. Like, that was barely here, you know, last year. And yeah, I had two very, very good designers working for me, and I let them go just because I was like, the way that we're working it doesn't make sense anymore. And the same profile that I described before, but just someone who spiked more heavily in design, would be not just like twice as influential or useful to the company, but like 100 times more influential or useful, and more every week, because the tools and stuff were getting better and better and better. Like, that person would have been able to go faster and farther. So yeah, that's sort of, that's not a very cohesive response, but I think that as someone who always was the designer who could influence the product, like, it's actually quite fun to watch watch the whole industry deal with the emergence of an entire class of designers who are in the same position. And I think it's going to be better for software overall, but yeah, it's going to, we're like a couple months out from just that entire industry. Like, I think having to really reckon with it. Yeah. If you find that genuine talk on YouTube, like, read the comments section. It's just the place where this discussion ended up happening.
It's like people just sort of confronting the reality that years of best practices where like the process was how you were measured was done away with, because now we live in a world where it's like the end result is in fact going to be the difference of what matters at the end of the day.
There's good arguments there as well. I should say that like some design is not like user research is horizontal research. Like, you know, there are not everything can be shipped, you know, by like after 7 p.m. You know, with two people and some White Claw or something. but boy, the surprising amount of the day-to-day design work absolutely will be replaced by that, and should be. Yeah. So that's my hot take.
And how do you think startups will be able to differentiate in this new world? Because one thing I have appreciated about tldraw in the way that you've approached it is you just let your personality shine through the entire product and how it markets itself, how it talks about itself. In some ways, it's like it is like a manifestation of you, like one-to-one. It's a creative vehicle, and I think that part of the appeal of tldraw is not simply its functionality. Part of it's like the affiliation with like, yeah, I like this person that's like being kind of unapologetically whimsical and him, and sort of there's tons of personality and authenticity behind all the incredible Twitter content. He like shows us his old beautifully drawn notebooks alongside like feature like launches.
I don't think I did that on Maine.
But in all seriousness, like what has that kind of taught you in terms of like how founders need to think about differentiation and standing out from the pack?
Yeah. So when I ended up working for Framer as a design educator, so kind of like a content creator, maybe like a DevRel, but for technical designers, who there weren't many, and so they pivoted away from that pretty quickly. But at that job, I tried really hard to try and figure out, okay, what actually, like, how do you connect to people, like, about a product, especially a technical product? And is it video content? Is it blog posts? Like, how do you make stuff that people care about and notice? And like they let me go from that. They're investors now, so it's all fine. But they let me go from that job because I wasn't good at I didn't figure it out. And I think there were a couple of reasons for that. I just had a kid, whatever. But
blame the child.
Yorn. But the and the brand was like really advanced, or the brand was, Framers had a beautiful, still does have a beautiful brand and a very kind of like cohesive, high, like a kind of a luxury software brand, right?
Yeah.
And that was really hard to hit fast enough.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I walked away from that was that, number one, backlog, like normal content creation, you create a backlog of content, and then like that accrues views over time and reputation, all that, like, does not matter. If you're a small startup, especially, like, you own the now, and then you own the now again, and then you continue to go after the now. Like you're should be looking at the part of the fuse that is burning, because there's nothing behind it. Like it's no one goes to blog posts, the archive of a startup's blog post.
Nobody has the bandwidth either.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't. So if you can, and the only way to do that, to constantly be kind of telling that story, is to have a story that is like essentially the story of you building the product, because that your actual building is giving you the material from which to tell the story. I post a lot of like GIFs and stuff because I needed to. I was taking them for debugging. I was taking them for PRs. They were like the chaff of my development process. It's a visual tool. And so those just went onto Twitter. Like I wasn't spending time making content. I was just kind of just posting the stuff, or hitting a problem, or trying to design an API, and I would start posting about it or writing about it. And then halfway through, I'm just like, I'm embarrassed to post this because the API is bad. Like, I'm gonna go fix the API so that I can make a better post.
But I love that it illuminated a lot of like non-obvious design challenges that you were grappling with, almost like in real time.
Yeah.
That like there's more to designing for the infinite canvas and reconciling how does this arrow move around this corner? Like look at how goofy it is in this tool. Look at how goofy it is in my tool. Like how can I actually like solve for this in real time? And I feel like it was just great fodder for people who cared about the product.
Absolutely.
And realized like how much attention was going into these kinds of details.
Yeah.
But then too, I imagine for future customers and recruits, like this is a place where I get to tackle this sort of problem. Right?
Yeah. At the time, I had it was the plan was to open source it and then go like work for Adobe or something like that.
Right.
But it turned out to be really good product marketing for an infrastructure company. Is just to be developed a reputation as like the person who, for whatever reason, like cared way more than anyone else about the way that arrows looked and the interactions around arrows or something like that, right? Or digital pressure sensitive ink was another one that I worked on. And that like, if you're in a position to be like, yeah, like build on this things that I've built, right? Like that's a very good reputation to have. Yeah. And I love whenever I find someone on Twitter that is like obsessed with a particular domain's like problem space and just won't shut up about it. Yeah. And I'm just
when they make it legible, when all of a sudden like I care about it.
Yeah.
Like
there's has anyone worked in like a high-end restaurant before? Okay. Yeah, right on. Okay. Like I have not, and I've barely ever gone to a high-end restaurant, but there are decisions that are being made all around you at any restaurant, but more noticeable at the high-end restaurants that are highly intentional, highly opinionated, and that you might not notice, but that kind of add up to the luxury experience of being at a high-end restaurant, right? What does the table look like? What does the lighting look like? You know, how are things presented to you, right? Like, is the hostess walking backwards, you know, as they're bringing you to the table? All those types of things. And there are people like, I don't know, maybe you notice this when you go to restaurants or something like that. You'd be like, I see what you're doing. You know, like, this is not like a default choice, right? This is an opinionated choice. This is like a detailed thing. And any hard problem space has that same thing, whatever. Maybe this is like taste or whatever, but taste isn't like something you're born with. It's like opinionated choices within a certain space, right? That are informed, and there are moves. They're kind of the whatever in the field of culture as it relates to restaurants, or in this case, software, and Canvas apps and stuff like that. And you know, at the end of the day, you got to make a choice. Yeah. Do the corners of your dashed lines stay in the corner, like or not? You know, do you make the dashes wider, or do you make the space wider? Do you make them both wider so that they lock? The corners lock. I don't know if you guys can imagine this, but that's the type of stuff.
I think anybody who's used tldraw and is building on it appreciates these details and how they really do accumulate into what I think is just like the state of the art. And so thank you for building it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
And it's really good. We're a little bit over time, but I wanted to just extend a warm round of applause to Steve. Thank you for coming, for sharing your wisdom with us.